At 46, I started college in the US and graduated at 50. Normally, you'd think, wow. But that's where my story begins. It might sound like ancient history, but it wasn't that long ago. I was surrounded by classmates who were the same age as my son or daughter. Just imagine the next year left, doesn't it? This experience made me realize I might have become a slightly different Japanese person. But you know what? I like this version of myself. Today, I'll confess my top 5 moments from studying abroad later in life. The laughs, the fails, and the lessons that changed me. Let's dive in. One day, I got my geology assignment back and it was a C. My scholarship was at risk and I thought there's no way this deserves a C. So I emailed the professor. His response? The TA graded it, so ask her. Great, just pass the bug, right? I emailed the TA, but she brushed me off like I was invisible. Frustrated, I decided enough was enough. After class, I marched up to the professor and said, I'm gonna talk to you, not the TA. You should have seen his face. It was priceless. He invited me to his office, looked over my work, and said, Why is this a C? My thoughts exactly. In the end, he changed my grade to an A. At first, I hesitated. I couldn't shake the thoughts. This might be rude to the professor, or it's better not to start the wars. In Japan, we are taught to avoid conflict, and those lessons were hard to ignore. But then I realized if I didn't speak up, nothing would change. This was my first step toward confidently saying no. And it's funny, now my husband jokes,
You're not just hating Japanese person, you're Japanese who says no too much.
Maybe he's right, but hey, it works for me. Attendance affects your grades. Especially in one class I took, the professor absolutely loved hearing students' opinions. Normally, I'm the type that's sitting back, trying to stay as invisible as possible. But for this class, I quickly realized the strategy wouldn't work. So I came up with a bold plan. Sit right in the front, smack dab in the middle, directly in front of the professor. My goal? Silently signal, look how serious I am about this class. Of course, I was also determined not to get called on, so I put on my best intense focused face, pretending to hang on every word. Oh, and I was the only one in the front row. Apparently, avoiding the front row is just a thing in Japan. In the end, my silent pressure must have worked too well. I was never called on even once, and I made it through the class unscathed. My strategy, a huge success. By the way, what's it like in your country? Do people sit in the front row, or is it something they tend to avoid too? Tests are in English, of course, and as you can imagine, just reading the questions took forever, so the test time flew by. Frustrated, I thought if only I had more time, I could finish this. So I boldly asked the professor for an extension. To my surprise, he smiled and said, Sure, no problem. But it seems my English wasn't as clear as I thought, because the professor ended up extending the test time for the entire class. I thought, well, everyone must be relieved to have extra time, right? Turns out, I was completely wrong. Everyone else finished early and left, leaving me as the only one still working. Even Even the test proctor had to wait around just for me. Did I feel bad? Embarrassed? Not at all. By this point, I was so used to maxing out the test time that I'd become unapologetically bored about it. Maybe even shameless. Boldness grows with practice, I guess. Back in college, my best friend was a native English speaker and the same age as my daughter. Without him, I don't think I would have made it a graduation. For her presentation and speech classes, he'd help me nail my pronunciation and expressions. If I don't understand my homework, he'd patiently explain it to me. And biological anthropology, let's just say I didn't even know what I didn't know. Because he was sitting right next to me in class, I somehow managed the pass. Basically, I was a kindergartner trying to blend in with college students. People probably thought,
Who left this clueless about in here?
and honestly, they weren't wrong. After that, I stopped caring about who's older, younger, senior, or junior. It all seemed kind of silly. When I emailed professors or friends with a question, their replies were so short, just one-liner that got straight to the point. At the time, I couldn't help but think, are they upset about something? And if their response took longer than expected, I'd start worrying. Did my email even reach them? In Japan, emails usually begin with something like,
Hello, I hope this message finds you well.
and anyways,
Thank you for your time and support.
the over replied and always long. Cause I was so used to this kind of email, it was hard to adjust to the ultra simple replies from native English speakers. When I wrote polite Japanese style emails, people would say, I can't figure out what you're asking for. As a result, my emails have become so simplified since returning to Japan that they probably come across as rude. Honestly, politeness is just exhausting. I'm now living in Japan as a slightly different Japanese person. Somehow, life has become more interesting. I've discovered more things I want to try, and life feels easier with less stress. I'm sure you have something like that too, an experience that changed you in some way, right? By the way, people often say, this experience changed me, but don't you think it's more like I returned to my true self? That's how it feels to me, like I've reconnected with my essence. Am I the only one who feels this way? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. See you next week.